أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Welcome to another Quran study. Today we'll be reading from Surah 8, verse 28. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan rejected. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Verse 28. Money and children are tests. You should know that your money and your children are a test, and that God possesses a great recompense. Oh, you who believe, if you reverence God, He will enlighten you, remit your sins, and forgive you. God possesses infinite grace. So, we're told all throughout the Quran about how our property, which includes money, land, and other things, and as well as our children, are tests. And, they're an important test too, right? Because this is part of, we're all here to be tested. It's, to see if we'll worship God alone under all circumstances, or if we'll become distracted with the worldly, with the worldly materials. And so, this is these are exacting tests that we have to go through. And if we pass them, it's only with God's help, right? But keep remembering that all this is an illusion too. So the money that you have won't last. Or whatever you can buy with it. And the same goes for the children. Your children, God willing, they're believers, but they can't save you on the day of judgment, and neither can you save your children. So it um, behooves us that we should uh, worship God, under all circumstances, regardless of, what comes our way, or even if the test seems difficult, we have to implore God for help. So we're told here, if you reverence God, He will enlighten you, remit your sins, and forgive you. So being appreciative of God, not taking His requital for granted, um, examining ourselves, being thankful to God, remembering God, remembering all His traits, His names, the most dignified, the most honorable Lord. Just looking on our, maybe our spare time, if we watch, or if we come across a picture or a short clip of the universe or some amazing creature in the ocean, like in the depths of the ocean that maybe we didn't even know existed. We can all, be amazed at these things. And, this is being appreciative and reverencing God. And, He will enlighten and remit our sins, and forgive us. So, and God possesses infinite grace too, so we have to possessor of infinite grace. So we should never despair in His mercy, but also not take it for granted, as we've seen a lot of people do from other religions. They go through life, and just even outside of the idol worship, they're very lackadaisical and like making the decisions and prioritizing, God in their life, doing the right things, leading a righteous life, and they'll just, oh, God's the most merciful, He'll forgive me, or Jesus is so merciful, He'll forgive me because I worship Him. And these are all ideas, and um, these are all ideas from Satan, right? Um, and those who are fortunate enough not to, fall victim into those ideas are should really, we're really fortunate to get this message, because so many people around us are not believers or submitters, And I mean, even the people who we do give the message to, it doesn't even guarantee their salvation. So let alone, most people at this point, we can say maybe they haven't gotten the message, but even for the people that get the message, it doesn't guarantee, um, their salvation. You have to put in the work. We all have to put in the work and hope for God's mercy. But we have to do our part. We have to work very hard and be extremely, um, you know, um, be very hard on ourselves, be very critical of ourselves for our own benefit. We don't. It's not like we have to tell other people about these things because but we ask God to help us, and purify us. This is the best for us, and this is the path to the happiness and returning to God. God protects His messenger. The disbelievers plot and scheme to neutralize you or kill you or banish you. However, they plot and scheme, but so does God. God is the best schemer. When our revelations are recited to them, they say, "We have heard. If we wanted to, we could have said the same things. These are no more than tales from the past." They also said, "Our God, if this is really the truth from you, then shower us with rocks from the sky and pour upon us a painful punishment." um, so we're told here, we see that God protects His messenger. And He protects His messenger. And this one is a footnote. Um, yes. So God chose His final prophet Muhammad from the strongest tribe of Arabia. It was the tribal law and traditions that prevented the disbelievers, by God's leave, from killing Muhammad. Similarly, it was God's will to move His messenger of the covenant from the Middle East, where he would have been killed, to the USA, where God's message can flourish and reach every corner of the globe. This is mathematically confirmed. The surahs and verses. This is mathematically confirmed. The surah and verse numbers equal 8 plus 30 equals 38, which is 19 times 2. Plus. So I mean, this is something that is always gonna, as long as we can assume that as long as there's humans on Earth, there's gonna be disbelievers and the opposition that's gonna oppose the message. Also oppose the believers, submitters, the messenger. And despite their schemes and their plotting, we're told that God is the best protector because He controls these people too. So He can do anything. Like despite how the situation may seem, this is where putting our trust in God, is tested in this manner. But remembering that God is doing everything is really I think the key behind this, because then you realize whatever these schemers or these disbelievers, the enemies of God, are doing, they're not they're just scheming against their own souls, and God is controlling them. They're controlling the situation. He's in charge of all outcomes. So, I mean, we see here that these are utterances that we see from time to time about being tales from the past, and their arrogance about to request the painful retribution. Instead of just listening to the message, we can see clearly why these people deserve to be annihilated, because nothing's going to change their mind. And if and when they do believe, it's only because judgment has come upon them, and they don't, they're being requited for everything they've done. So naturally, yeah, they're gonna submit at that point. But it's not true submission. It's not submitting because they love God or appreciative of God. They're just doing it. It's just lip service, right? They're just they're only doing this because judgment has come. You know, I mean, we see the same examples with Pharaoh um, and other other communities. However, God is not, verse 33, however, God is not to punish them while you are in their midst. Excuse me. God is not to punish them while they are seeking forgiveness. Um, so yeah, I mean, if these people are actually seeking forgiveness, mashallah, God is the most merciful. He gives these people a chance, and also, um, if there's submitters, like we have example, I think back to Lot, how God rescues him, but these people obviously weren't seeking forgiveness. They were insisting on their transgression. So, it was, to the point of no return. But we're given examples of God rescued, these people. But also, if you're still in their midst, um, God will not punish these people and will protect you from, and if these people are deserving of retribution, He'll make a way out for you. Right? Have they not deserved God's retribution by repelling others from the sacred masjid, even though they are not the custodians thereof, the true custodians thereof, or the righteous, but most of them do not know. So yeah, there was people. I mean, how evil do you have to be to like actively spend your time like doing these things? Instead of just going on with your life, disbelieving, whatever. They're actively fighting the God, like actually devoting resources and time and effort to I mean, these are Satan's soldiers, we know that. But I guess we can see. I don't know if this goes on still today, but maybe it does. Maybe we can talk about that. I guess, yeah, if they are repelling in a sense, if they're idolizing Muhammad, or calling on Ali or these different, um, um, these different vanguards or, Prophet Muhammad, or whoever else, yeah, that's repelling, others, especially those submitters, and also how they only have their masjid open a couple, not too, I don't know the exact timing, but they don't have it open as long as it should be open for the just for their own convenience, which is not right. The contact prayer salah existed before the Quran. Their contact prayer salah at the shrine Kaaba were no more than a mockery and a means of repelling the people by crowding them out. Therefore, suffer the retribution for your disbelief, spending their money to fight God. And those who disbelieve spend their money to repel others from the way of God. They will spend it, then it will turn into sorrow and remorse for them. Ultimately, they will be defeated, and all the disbelievers will be summoned to hell. God will sift away the bad from the good, then pile the bad on top of each other, all in one pile, then throw it in hell. Such are the losers. So this one has a footnote. 35. All religious practices in Islam came to us through Abraham. When the Quran was revealed, all rights in submission were already in existence. And we can see that's in Surah 21, verse 73, and Surah 22, verse 79. In the footnote for 36 reads, the idol worshipping leaders of corrupted Islam, Saudi Arabia, have allocated huge sums of money annually to fight God and his miracle. For example, the famous Lebanese publisher Dar I'll probably butchering that, but Knowledge for the Millions published an Arabic version of the Miracle of the Quran in March of 1983. the Saudis bought all the copies and destroyed them. So yeah, I mean, it's so bad. I mean, it's one thing to disbelieve, but when you're actively, I mean, as we see from verse 36, spending their money to fight God, it's going to turn into sorrow and remorse for these people. So, I mean, who knows what it's going to be like for these people in hell? But I mean, we know that the people who hoard gold, or it's going to be heated up in the fire of hell and used to burn their backs and foreheads. So, I mean, similarly, these materials, that are all part of this illusion is going to come back to haunt them. So literally, they're increasing their punishment, you know, which is they don't see it as that, but they are. So I mean, it's the worst trade that you can make, but these people are actively evil because I mean they're literally trying to prevent people from making it to heaven. They want people to join them in hell. So this is what they do. They want to, and it's Satan. These are Satan's soldiers. I mean, these are people who want are going to hell. They want you to join them, and they want to try to put up God's light, but they're only as we read earlier, their schemes will backfire, and not just in the hereafter, but also in this life, they're going to be the losers. Because uh, victory belongs to God. Much like we see this verse 37. God sifts away the bad from the good. You know, then piles the bad on top of each other, all in one pile, then throws it in hell. Such are the rulers. Verse 38, tell those who disbelieve if they stop, all their past will be forgiven, but if they return, they'll incur the same fate as their previous counterparts. You shall fight them to ward off oppression and to practice your religion devoted to God alone. If they refrain from aggression, God is fully seer of everything they do. You know, I mean, look at, I mean, even people, human beings are mean, like, I mean, we can see how merciful God is, and but people are so unappreciative for it. But I mean, literally, these people are being invited to be forgiven despite, their disbelief. But if they return, I mean, we're given the chance. We just read quite a bit about the children of Israel previously. How many chances they've gotten. Um, but they turned. We know they turned unappreciative. And inevitably, anyone who returns, or backslides, it's going to be the same. They're going to incur the same fate as their previous counterparts, and that's why we see so much, so many times it's mentioned about these communities in the Quran that are applicable even to today's world. Even though there's a there's a large time period between Muhammad and the messenger of the covenant, Muhammad the prophet, God's messenger, the covenant. It's still the same. These corrupt communities will be annihilated selectively, one way or another. And we're also told, to fight these people off, to ward off oppression, because it's, and to be able to practice our religion devoted to God. If they refrain from aggression, I mean, if they make peace treaties with us, we can't do anything. But God is fully seer of everything we do, and we're fighting them in the cause of God. The disbelievers, fighting the cause of tyranny, to try to control, just parts of the illusion, just things that they're gonna not even see in 50 years, and maybe no more than 100. Land, money, tall buildings, oil, gold, rare earths. I mean, but they don't think about death. They don't think about the hereafter. They just live. They just YOLO. You know, uh, that's just like goofy term, but really, I mean, it's they just live for this life. They don't they don't like the idea of being accountable, and because so many other people are doing it, you can see how the majority follows the majority. That makes sense because everybody was just comfortable worshiping Jesus. Well, they're all doing it. They all seem fine. They wake up, they go to sleep, they're eating, they live in whatever houses they're going over. Everything's good, nothing's bad. So they don't actually think that they just look at like all these other people. I mean, most people, you know, it's called like crowd think, I think, and so they don't give any thought. But that's why it's called the shocker. Because everybody, all, not everybody, but everybody who's a disbeliever or idol worshiper, um, is gonna be shocked. Shocked that their idols aren't gonna save them. Shocked at how they were living. Shocked at how they traversed the earth. For their whole lifespan and didn't even like look around or try to ponder. Whether it's looking at like a small insect that makes you think about God, or or just some other situation. Look at the stars and these other things. That all this isn't just as a verse says, our Lord, you did not create all this in vain. We're not just here. Everything's so perfect here, as in a sense, like there's no glitches. Like this isn't. We're not just here, and then everything. There's a reason for everything. And as we know, and it's all confirmed with the greatest proof why we're here. We're here to worship God. We know what God has sent us here, our egos, and how it's our last chance to come to school. Take our test and learn. As I like the example that the messenger gave. When you find somebody deficient in something, you send them back to school. Forget exactly how we put it, but we're here to correct ourselves and to re-educate ourselves on how God is the only Lord and Master, the best Lord and Master. 40, if they turn away, then you should know that God is your Lord and Master, the best Lord and Master, the best supporter. You should know that if you gain any spoils in war, 1/5 shall go to God, a messenger to be given to the relatives, the orphans, the poor, and the traveling alien. You will do this if you believe in God and what we revealed to our servant on the day of decision, the day the two armies clash. God is omnipotent. Yeah, so this looks. I guess this is an important. Not I guess, but it must have been a very important event or day. That this this was revealed to what was revealed to our servant on the day of decision. So, yeah, I mean, these are things you have to follow, and there shouldn't, be any hesitation to, keep extra spoils of war. If you really reverence God, and I mean, even for the example, like I was listening to the verse the other day, I think last week about the people that became too distracted with the spoils of war, and they ended up. But I mean, I think they ended up repenting after. But it was a good verse. And I mean, these were submitters too. So I mean, they were around the prophet. I mean, so that's why we have to really uh, be be careful with our own submission. Be very crucial, or not crucial, but critical of ourselves. So we can maintain and grow in our submission to God. God controls everything and plans for the believers. Recall that you were on this side of the valley while they were on the other side. Then their caravan had to move to lower ground. Had you planned it this way, you could not have done it, but God was to carry out a predetermined matter whereby those destined to be annihilated were annihilated for an obvious reason, and those destined to be saved were saved for an obvious reason. God is here, omniscient. God made them appear in your dream, O Muhammad, fewer in number. Had he made them appear more numerous, you would have failed, and you would have disputed among yourselves. But God saved the situation. He is knower the innermost thoughts. So, this is again, this is telling us, here that God is doing everything. God is running everything. And the things that we do, we really the decision we make is to side with God as submitters. He helped, like he controls everything and helps us. And anything good we send ahead for ourselves. That's God giving us a chance to earn a lot of credit. We need as much credit as we can get. To make up for the sins of the past. Even to make up. To make up for anything, and we have to constantly repent too. But much like we also see here that everything is controlled by God, and there's certain plans, even we see in our lives as submitters that are carried out. For there's a good reason for everything. Mashallah. And in the dream, so I guess it looks like, appearing fewer in number, you're gonna have more. You're not gonna. You're gonna have more. You're gonna feel more. I guess confident in the sense where you can defeat these people, right? And it says, had you made them appear more numerous, you would have failed, and you would have disputed among yourselves. So I guess I kind of think of it like, it's kind of like you're at a finish line or something in a race, and then there's somebody next to you, and then you're maybe, if he's way ahead of you and you're way behind, you're like, oh man, maybe I'm not going to try as hard because he's probably going to, but it's not good to think like that, that. But God makes it easy in this sense. So, like, let's say, you're side by side with this person. You're like, oh, we're going to have a really high chance, so you're going to really give it your all. So that's just, I guess, maybe the thinking here that the believers, submitters had, which, and it was God helping them. God saved the situation. And when the time came and you faced them, he made them appear fewer in your eyes and made you appear fewer in their eyes as well. For God will to carry it out a certain plan. All decisions are made by God, so maybe as well for the other army, they say, oh, this is just some small army. They're going to take it easy. They're not going to actually even try that hard, They're going to, it's kind of like, you see in the movies, like maybe Braveheart or something, or these other movies, but, you see just, examples of how the enemies, disbelievers, the kings overestimated, and excuse me, they underestimated, and so they don't really try that hard, and they're just taking, like, okay, they're arrogantly saying we're going to defeat these people, no big deal, and it's not the case, So, but this is a good example, that despite the size of these people's armies, despite these disbelievers, God is carrying out every plan. So their schemes, whether they're hidden schemes right behind closed doors, or whether they're obvious schemes out in the open, like when they're trying to fight you, it's still a scheme. And in a way, it's all controlled by God. And it's going to backfire on these people because you can't succeed, and you're never going to succeed. Fighting against the Lord of the universe, you're always going to fail. And even if it seems like it's just being adorned in these people's eyes, that they're going to win or they're going to scheme against the people, we see a lot more of that today, especially today in the last couple of years, in the country, United States. I mean, other parts of the world too. But this is where we, this is where we, we trust in God, and we know He's controlling all these situations, and we just have to do our part, and He'll help us. Inshallah. Will you believe when you encounter harm, you shall hold fast and commemorate God frequently that you may succeed. So we're supposed to hold fast. We don't backslide. We hold fast and we commemorate God frequently. So remember God, we praise God, zikr, and that's how we actually succeed, by making God our God, growing our soul doing this, and it's also God strengthens us. There's a verse that says, "And God thus toughens the believers." So these are ways that we grow or strengthen ourselves, our soul. You shall obey God and His messenger, and do not dispute among yourselves, lest you fail and scatter your strength. You shall steadfastly persevere. God is with those who steadfastly persevere. The blame, the disputers, hypocrites that, dispute and try to argue against the truth with falsehood. They're the ones to blame. They're the ones that have divided themselves, and they're just gonna, it's like scatter your strength. They're just gonna. I mean, these people are not with God. These people are just roaming the earth aimlessly, right? As we're told, we're given examples of these people. I mean, really, it's a punishment. Um, it has to be a punishment from God too. But we're told that the submitters, the true submitters, aren't going to do things like this, and then the hypocrites and disbelievers, like the verse that says, the devils inspire their allies to argue with you. So I mean, you'll see this. I mean, it's these people that are going to be the losers. And the end of the verse says, God is with those who steadfastly persevere. So those who cop out, those who drop out, those who turn ungrateful and appreciative, right? And you can say that you're appreciative. You can say all these things are aligned to God, knows my innermost intentions, like the verse that says that they swear by that God, they call upon God to witness their innermost thoughts, and swear by it. Or, Lord, our intentions were righteous. These are verses that talk about this. But I mean, you can say all these things, but if your actions, that's what exposes you. So the things you say, the things you do. I mean, this is going to be on your record. You can say your intentions were this, or that, but at the end of the day, what is, your hands, your tongues, these are things that are going to bear witness against you. So it's the same thing. You can't fool people, when your actions say otherwise. And God is not with those people that do that. God is with those who steadfastly persevere. So if it gets tough, you don't drop out. You don't give up. You don't take the easy. You don't abandon those who have have entrusted you. You treat people amicably. But there's a good reason for everything, right? And I mean, we, even as submitters, we learn from these things, like just seeing these things, witnessing these things. It's like the verse that, like the Quran is applicable to every situation in life. 47. Do not be like those who left their homes grudgingly, only to show off, and in fact discourage others from following the path of God. God is fully aware of everything they do. So there's people that at the times of war that have left their homes grudgingly and just did it to show off. They weren't, I guess, actually serious about, doing it for God or striving in the cause. And in fact, these people discourage others from following the path of God. The devil sees God's invisible soldiers. The devil had a thorn that works in their eyes and said, "You cannot be defeated by any people today, and I will be fighting along with you." But as soon as the two armies faced each other, he turned back on his heels and fled, saying, "I disown you. I see what you do not see. I'm afraid of God. God's retribution is awesome." Yes, I mean, he's basically calling these people stupid. Like, how stupid are you? You follow me? Like, I mean, like I mean, this is, what's going to be said, like on the day of judgment, sir, 14, uh, and Abraham, how the devil will say, I invited you and you accepted my invitation. You cannot help my complaining cannot help you, and your complaining cannot help me. I disbelieve, and you idolizing uh, your idolization. So, you know, I mean, the messenger said this is basically him calling these people stupid. Like, "Oh, you're so stupid. You followed me." Like, I mean, but we can see that the devil, whatever the devil promises, is no more than a lie. It's an illusion that he hypnotizes these people. And you know, we also see how he adorns people's works in their eyes. I mean, even if sound advice comes to these people, worshiping God alone, whatever that advice may be, they insist on their ways, insist on their opinions. The hypocrites and those who harbor doubts in their hearts said, "These people are deceived by their religion. However, if one puts his trust in God, then God is Almighty, most wise." Yes, I mean, this is this is exactly what hypocrites say, because they themselves are deceived and they've idolized their own opinions over sound advice. And they don't understand the Quran either as it should be understood. They basically they don't truly believe in accountability to the hereafter. I mean, even if they think they do, They're not. Um, they can't be reverent, or else they would really think about, situations, or good advice is coming to them. I mean, hypocrites are unappreciative, extremely unappreciative. I mean, even the hypocrites say they swear by our intentions were good and righteous. I think it's like in Surah 50 something, or maybe 60, 50s or 60s, but uh, but they're liars. They just lie to themselves to the point of believing their own lies. Uh, but, uh, but this is why as submitters, we put our trust in God, and God is Almighty, most wise. Because God is running everything, and our primary, all we should be really thinking about is God. In every situation, even if we're cooking some eggs, or even during this Quran study, we think about God, we thank Him, and we ask Him for help constantly. We constantly repent to Him too, and pray, that He strengthens our foothold, and the good. I think of the prayer and the surah too. Let not our hearts waver, because we see a lot of different things playing out and happening, and especially in the world. So we have to implore God for help, silently or loudly. With that being said, if there's any comments or questions, please feel free. If I made any mistakes, may God forgive me. Thank you.
So thank you for the good study, brother. Mhm.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, I mean, good verses. I like the comments about our intentions. People think that people can do whatever they think is best as long as they have the right intentions in their minds. And God teaches us that we have to do the righteous things, and then our intentions matter whether we did the righteous things for a good reason or for a bad reason. But if we are just using our personal opinion and just blundering and saying, "Oh, I have good intentions and God knows my intentions," then just those people are fooling others and but really are just not fooling others or fooling God. In reality, they're just fooling themselves, because we're here to obey God. And if you're not going to obey God and you're going to have good intentions and do whatever you think in your little mind, that what you think is correct, which obviously if we knew anything, like, we wouldn't end up here in this world, right? We ended up here because we thought we knew everything and we would do the right thing. We, think we know everything. And this is about killing the ego and following and obeying God and submitting to God. And the intentions would matter when you're doing the right thing, whether you're doing it for God or whether you're doing it for a show off. That's where the messenger of the covenant also explains that's where the intention really matters. You know? So, I mean, God has given us this chance to prove whether we're going to follow Satan's footsteps or whether we're going to follow God's commandments. I mean, if it was just about intentions, like, what is the intention of people who are worshiping Muhammad? They have quote unquote good intentions. So do all the other idol worshippers. Every rebellious person in the world has some kind of good intentions too, that they think that they're doing something good. Like, but obviously, God is the one who guides. And the thing is that, if we're sincere, I mean, God is going to teach us the Quran. God is going to teach us how to apply it in our lives to become righteous, because that's not something that everybody gets when they read the Quran. People read the Quran, they come up with the most absurd ideas and do the most absurd things, do the most evil things, and find a verse or two in the Quran to justify each and every one of those actions. If they're really trying to be, clever. But the thing is, it's not about that. It's not about pulling off a trick that you want to do something and you found a verse in the Quran to justify what you're doing. And you know, so this is why there's such a thing as hypocrites, and this is why God is reminding us about them over and over again. Inshallah.
MashaAllah.
John, did you forget to change the title?
Oh yeah, I did actually forget to change it.
Right. It's
Yeah, I slipped. I hadn't slipped like that in a while.
yeah,
I'm
you're pretty
serious.
good
It's been
at
like a
that.
year since I think I think what caused it, I was gonna try to use this downstairs, the studio,
Uh-huh.
and then I
Uh-huh.
was like, I couldn't get the background
Oh,
or
you can
something,
do.
and then I went back up,
Uh-huh.
I think that's
Okay.
was like getting
Okay.
distracted. Yeah.
No worries. Yeah, and, next time you want to set that up, I mean, we can do a screen share and I can show you.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. See, see. I'm at the airport.
oh
This
yeah.
is this is what I see. Hold on.
That's the airport in Morocco.
Yeah,
What's
that's the lens I see. This is at the airport. This is a cat sitting next to me. No, all right.
Yeah, I mean, too, like if people are looking, like if they're, if they're trying to look for a reason to find a verse in the Quran to support their, support whatever deviation they want to engage in, that's not good. And like these people are end up going to be led on because even just having that mindset is not good. But I mean,
Right.
if you're actually truly trying to seek the truth and you want to accept it, even if it doesn't, like even if the it you know you're gonna accept it no matter what. You just want the truth and you're gonna be happy with it. Those people are gonna be able to see it, you know. And they're not going to care whether, like the verse that says, the messenger, when they go to the messenger to judge and among the disputes, they're going to accept it. The submitters are actually going to accept whatever judgment, without any, without arguing. Um, it says, do not consider them friends unless they accept. Uh,
Mhm.
Judgment. I mean, of course, that was at the time of the messenger or the prophets, but it's the same. It's a similar thing, Like if a lot of people reject the truth because it's not self-serving, for the situation, and that just shows you where their true intentions lie. It's not in worshiping God. It's not prioritizing the hereafter. It's not striving, right? It's not striving or being steadfast or persevering or trying to excel. It's just self-serving, and they'll justify. That's the most dangerous thing is to try to justify these things. Are there any comments or questions from anybody about the Brother Johnson? Sipan Mardani. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, also like the verse about the messenger being moved to the United States, we see how God protects his messenger. And, it also correlates to verse 42 in a way, how God controls everything and plans for the believers. Okay. Okay, I see. Yeah, and the same goes for us. So when disbelievers try to plot or scheme, they only scheme against themselves, right? Like, the zikr where it was talked about how we can say that God is with me right now, even in this room, whether you're driving or anything like that, he's with me right now. And the messenger said, any devilish thoughts you could be having or that you could have will go away. And, this is a good way to remember God. And, so whatever situation we find ourselves in, reminds us that God is with us. He's with everybody, in the sense like where he controls these, uh, you know, disbelievers and these people who would try to hurt um, the submitters or put out God's message.
So we read from 828, right?
Yes, yeah, from 828 to 49.
Sure. Also, like verse number 30 is a good reminder that, God will protect all the believers, from any scheming by the disbelievers or the first. I mean, the disbelievers were plotting to kill the messenger, all the messengers that we see in the past, the whole time. And, it was God's will for those people to be alive and well and free, during all of that time. And God showed his miracles, and he protected these people, including, for example, the messenger of the covenant. How, I mean, he was getting so many insults and so many threats from all kinds of different groups, but he was not like in the hiding or in secrecy in any way. I mean, he was up there traveling all over the world, meeting believers from all over, and he lived for as long as God had put it for him to be alive on this planet. Because we know that because the number of days he lived also was like a Muslim and king. For God to show us that nobody can do anything against God's will, and God's protection is amazing. We just have to put our trust in God in order for us to be protected. If you do everything according to what God tells us, and you make God your God, then God will protect us. The reason why we don't have that protection, or we don't see it as often, or as as amazing as we want it to be, is because we're not doing our part properly. We're not making God our God as much. We're not prioritizing our life according to how God wants us to be. We're not thinking about God as much. But if we do that, then God's promise is there for all of us. He will protect us. God says those who believe have deserved the perfect security. You know, so the perfect security is better than any security any king or president can even have, right? Of course, we have presidents and kings getting killed and getting shot and everything, and getting sick and dying, from these things. But if you have God's perfect security, then nothing can touch you. I mean, the examples, for example, how, we have obvious examples, we have hidden examples, but then we also have obvious examples, like, for example, fire becoming cool and safe for Abraham. And this is an example for us by God that, someone tries to scheme against you and make your life miserable. I mean, God's going to turn it around and make it wonderful for you, subhanAllah. That's that's the power of God. And I mean, if you really think about it, like, God really doesn't have to do any of these things because He's God. Like, He's the Lord of the heavens and the earth. I mean, He's just complete sovereign. He doesn't have to do anything, for anyone, but He's kind and generous and merciful and compassionate towards His worshippers, that, He rewards them, even though it doesn't benefit Him in any way. It's only for us. But He rewards us, He protects us, He looks after us. That shows that proves that God is very kind and loving, and I'm sure we all know that. But it's one thing to um, just know it, and then another thing to really understand. I mean, how His system is, and how God is really. We just don't get to experience it as much as we want because we're not doing what is expected of us as submitters, and we have a huge responsibility, as we know. So, but if you do your part, and God's blessings are going to pour on you from left and right. So, the one protection. Also, want to talk about since no one else is talking. I also want to talk about verse 37. This talks about the sifting process, as the messenger of the covenant also explained. The sifting process when there is on the surface, like a division of some sort. Like, people think, a bunch of people left and they divided. Oh, and they're saying, well, this is so bad. Like, this is division, and it's so sad. And and I mean, division means that you're dividing, you're changing religion. But when the bad people leave, the submitters, God and the messenger, refers to it as a sifting process, right? He says God will sift away the bad from the good, and then God says and pile the bad on top of each other, which is on the day of judgment, right? But this is a sifting process, he says, and it's nothing bad, nothing to be sad about, and it's healthy. And he says if one person leaves, God will send you more, multiply it. So you don't have to worry about your numbers. You're dwindling numbers. And inshallah, God will provide.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's another way to look at like how God is running everything. And I mean, like even in Surah 59, Exodus, we can see that how God forces people to leave. You know that, and but
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's not the most applicable example in like what we're talking about here, but it is. It's still nonetheless. It's
Mm-hmm. Really.
like God is doing everything. So the situation when
Mm-hmm.
people think they're making decisions, it's actually God that is
Mm-hmm.
doing everything and
Yeah.
helping and planning things for the believers.
Yeah, and we see that how God even encourages those people
Right. Yeah.
to leave,
Hmm.
and how for some people, like God put fear in their hearts and they left on their own, and but how God encourages these people to even get into a confrontation also first, and expose the good and the bad. So he made them, like, for example, when he says he made them appear pure in your dream and made you appear pure in their dream, which shows that God is in control. There's psychology behind it, like what the perception is on both sides, on who's more powerful, and he kind of encourages the other party to embolden and attack and be open and upfront just to fulfill his plan.
Brother John had a question. He said, "Can we say that in a group of people, if there are still some seeking forgiveness, God will not punish them?" Yeah, as a group as a whole, like He's not going to punish the people that are seeking forgiveness, or like if a punishment does come, this is just what I understand.
Those who
Like,
deserve it, yeah.
yeah, those who deserve it are going to get it, and you could be right next to these people. For example, I don't know exactly
Mm-hmm.
how. Like, there could be so many different ways
Mm-hmm.
these people could be punished. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hail, even hail from the sky could just hit all of them in the head and miss your head or something. But that's just
Yeah, I mean, like for example, if there were people, at Lot's time, right? And there were people who were, let's say, homosexuals or something, and then there were others among them that were repenting and seeking forgiveness, and then Lot was there as well. So God wouldn't God wouldn't bring earthquakes at that time, or something in the tradition of that time while all of those good people are among them, right? Uh, he may bring individual annihilation as what we see now, people, getting inflicted with AIDS and cancer and all those things, and getting individual annihilated, but they won't get a group retribution if they did nothing to be a part of it. Like Lot did nothing to be a part of it, and those people who repented and started seeking forgiveness, you know, they are not going to get punished because they're seeking forgiveness. It's not talking about people who are just sinning and seeking forgiveness as they're sinning and seeking forgiveness, like sinning in the daytime and seeking forgiveness in the evening. Like there are people who were sinning before the messenger came, like they repented. Now the messenger is with them, the believers are with them, and those other people are with them too. But God is not going to bring a flood, for example, when Noah is among them, right? And unless God has an exit plan for Noah and the people, same with Lot, right? So that's how I understand it. Because in doing, because in doing, what do you mean because in doing? Oh, because in dying? Because in? What is
I think you
because in?
said because
Oh,
dying is not a
because dying is
punishment.
not a punishment.
Yeah, there are kids,
Mm.
a lot of people. So lots of
But
people.
dying is not a punishment. But the thing is, it's not, but I mean, uh, it's not even time for them, maybe, right? So God is not, I mean, they don't need to be annihilated. Like, it's not time for the community to all of the whole community as a whole, for example, to be annihilated. There's good people among them, right? When the community is annihilated as a group, there are people that have lost completely. Like, for example, the Arabs, right? The Arabs have, there's no hope for them, and there's not a single Arab. Like, they're all, so these people can ask forgiveness day and night for their idol worshipers. They're gonna get hit, because they're idol worshiping and they're still disbelieving, even though they're seeking forgiveness. They're not like seeking forgiveness as in like repenting. But if there were people among them who were repenting and becoming righteous, then of course, those people would be saved, and the asteroid will not hit while those people were with them. But the only reason why asteroid is coming is because those people don't exist. They're just all the people there are hypocrites. That's when it's going to happen because and they don't deserve. Obviously, are there going to be people in there who's going to die before the age of 40? Yeah, but not the people, for example, who are over 40, who are seeking forgiveness from God, who have repented. I mean, hypothetically speaking, right? And if there was such a thing, like let's say there was a big group of Arabs that were seeking forgiveness and repenting, then Arabs as a community would not be annihilated. Right? They'll just be like individual annihilation, like you see everywhere else. Yeah, I really hope people can talk in this study because other people cannot read these comments like when you put it on YouTube and stuff. Like I understand like Tuesdays are late, we can't talk. But let's try to make ourselves heard. Like God willing, if possible, let's make it study more engaging. Turn the videos on sometimes if you can. Like you see how you see podcasts. And discussions that people have online. There's a reason why they're designed with people showing their faces and making more interesting for other people to you know uh, get involved. Right, guys? There's a lot of silence here. Like,
I think Brother Jaffer is having dinner.
so dinner.
Yeah,
It's time for dinner for me. It's so late, guys.
yeah, I'm having breakfast.
Breakfast? You having breakfast?
Well, kind of brunch, I guess.
Mhm. Okay, so anybody else has any other comments besides me and Brother John? Okay. Um, I guess we can go to off-topic questions if no one has any comments about the verses we read. I mean, there is like a lot of verses like we could have comments on, I guess, like, on the second page and like 38 onwards. So, mm, all right, I guess. Is there anything in the chat? Maybe we could talk about the leaders, leaders falling. That's not acceptable submission. You mean like in the Arab countries? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this would be true for anybody. Yeah, specifically for these people too. They were specifically um, Libya, Syria, and Iraq. Yeah, they were specific. I mean, they were not good people to begin with, right? And so they didn't accept the message. Or if, imagine if she accepted, I mean, it would open the door for submission for a lot of the people who were following them blindly. So they were invited, which was part of God's plan. All the leaders were invited, not just the political leaders, but also like preachers and the religious leaders, famous preachers, and all those people were invited. So, but obviously, those are the people that
Brother,
Satan has.
Brother Joshua, a new leader in Syria.
What?
I said, Brother Joshua wants to be the new leader after submission prevails. That's why he was asking. No, I'm just joking. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, like, I wonder too, I think I've asked or talked to you about Brother Suleman, but yeah, it's important, especially I think United States too, because that's the harder submission, but also elsewhere, where the mosque, God willing, built and
And
stuff.
maybe that's a good way to get rid of our leader. You
Mm-hmm.
invite him to submission, and then he doesn't accept them.
Mm-hmm.
He will bring him down.
Yeah. What was the day 40, sir? Excuse me, verse 41. What was the day of decision? Because it's talking about 1/5 of the spoils of war that are going to be
The
given to
day
God.
of decision, the day the two armies clashed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was God's army and the submitters versus the
Mm-hmm.
right.
Yes. Yes.
So was that something decreed, or what was revealed to our servant on the day? So is that what was revealed or part of it about giving 1/5?
Well, that's the portions are mentioned in the Quran, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean it's also a test for these people because you're getting these people's gold and gold cups. Really had things like that, very coveted back then, and these all this jewelry. Like the children of Israel had inherited Pharaoh's. Did they inherit a lot of their stuff? And what they're gonna do with that wealth, is a test, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of spoils and stuff, and so even there's a verse I think like, some of them became the with the spoils, and then others were right concerned with the hereafter.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, even for those people that became sidetracked and distracted, God is most merciful. If these people repent and give to the charity and not make these spoils their God. Yeah, because that's the surname, right? The spoils of war. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, using it and spending it in the cause of
Mm-hmm.
God would be best,
Mm-hmm.
without
Yeah,
neglecting.
and
Uh,
these people, when a lot of these people, didn't want to fight, you know, and when the spoils came, right, then they wanted to
they
have a
want
share in the spoils.
to, yeah,
Mm.
yeah, exactly.
Shows how people can be, materialistic in that sense. Like
Hmm.
they don't want to strive in the cause of God, but they want to get the spoils.
Right. Yeah, I mean, especially too. Yeah, if you're given if God is making it easy for you to strive in the cause of God, you know,
Hmm.
like and provided,
Hmm.
set you up with a really good situation. And then if you turn away from that, because not everybody gets
Hmm.
opportunities. I mean, people, let's say
Hmm.
on these mountain villages in uh, China or I don't know,
Hmm.
whatever,
Hmm.
South Africa. I
Yeah.
mean, they don't
Hmm.
have the same resources to like,
Hmm.
be able to go make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
They
Hmm.
might be able to make a few coins for the day, and
Hmm.
they're barely feeding
Hmm.
fed stuff, but they could still be appreciative.
Hmm.
If you're
Yeah.
given things and you turn away, you don't appreciate
Hmm.
it. That you're appreciative, but you're just being
Hmm.
a hypocrite and lying to yourself, and
Hmm.
and being sedentary. Which
Hmm.
I mean, the
Yeah.
sedentary that are like due to circumstances, that's one thing, fine. But if you're given, uh,
Hmm.
it's like having a tool or a blessing, like a cell phone. But if you use it just to play games all day instead of just say striving in the cause of God or doing something for your
Hmm.
character, that's being unappreciative, right? We're
Hmm.
appreciative
Hmm.
of time, of this physical
Hmm.
material
Hmm.
blessing, object, so forth.
Yeah. Also, I had a question, So this was a question that someone had asked, and um, I wish the person was here, but he's not. But I think that's something we can discuss, for the benefit of everybody else, because I think the question was asked like, let's say you're somebody who has not been educated, right? And you're just like just feeding at the bottom of the food chain, like just earning minimum wage and just barely able to afford to have a roof on your head and eat, you know and then let's say you even have opportunities, like for example to study, to work, to improve your life, to be better, but you decide that you don't want that because maybe it's it's something that's not worth it. Like as long as you're able to survive, like live. You don't necessarily want to do all of these things, and you just, if whether you're living somewhere for free, or just living in a very bad situation, as long as you just have food and you have like a roof over your head, you know um, uh, they say that, for example, that, what's wrong with that as a submitter, like to choose that kind of, like to choose to, not study, not work to improve my life, as a person who's, let's say, reasonably young and has the opportunities to be able to move forward in life, but chooses not to because the messenger said that you don't necessarily need to have a lot of money, in order to be content and happy. So what's wrong, in other words, to choose this lifestyle? What's wrong with it as a submitter? And I know that it might be said later on that I didn't pose the question in the right form, but believe me, I heard the question over and over many times, and this is exactly what I get from the question. And I don't know, many of us don't agree with it either, but I'm just bringing it up just to, have a consensus. And maybe if there's other people that think that, this is what submission teaches us, maybe that it can help them. So if we can discuss, what submission teaches us about these concepts, and how we should be, because Quran is a complete book, and our formula for success for in this world and hereafter. So it's important that we talk about these things so we can better ourselves. God willing.
Yeah, mashallah, that was you just explained well, I think well enough. But yeah, it's, I mean, just imagine this, like if all of us here had that mindset. I mean, how would Brother Suleiman's website be? Uh, you know, my dad wouldn't have been able to find it. I mean, someone's what we know, of course, like we know someone's destined to be guided or come across a message or come across it without a website or not. But uh, outside of that point, I mean, printing Qurans, being able to do these things, I mean, striving the cause of God, being able to afford services of streaming. I mean, just the list goes on. And to, especially, if you're given, like if you live in a country like United States, and there's so many resources. I mean, even there's countless resources. It's very lucrative in that sense, and you turn that away. It's I mean, it's the epitome of being unappreciative, um, and not wanting to work, right, and strive in that sense of bettering yourself so you can. Uh, also grow your soul, but also strive for the cause. Like the messenger said, God doesn't want the lazy employees. He wants hard workers in his kingdom. He said, because the lazy employees will cause the company to lose. So, I mean, if you have an employee, like if it came down, you had to let somebody go. Let's say they were cutting heads, or just cutting heads up. Let's say they were cutting. Let's say they were cutting head counts. They had to, if it came down to a person that was just very lackadaisical, and just, with his
Oh, you
work,
mean like reducing the number of people?
right, reducing the number of people. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I say cutting heads. I was
Cutting
thinking
heads.
like head count had to be lowered and
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, like reducing the number of people in the workforce. I mean, the CEO is going to pick the person who is more valuable to the company, more valuable, let's say, in just marketing the company. Let's say this person's a very good marketer and promoting the company, or let's just say he's a very good accountant and he's going to school, spending extra time learning these things. I mean, versus someone who isn't doing that. I mean, that's
Mhm.
the type of mindset we should have. And, it's very unappreciative to our creator if we don't if we aren't actively using these resources, or it's the wrong. It's a submitter. I have a hard time understanding or believing a submitter would think that not going to school will be okay, or even argue the point. And despite how they try to word it, arguing the point that I mean, it's just like the thing, like there's thousands, tens of hundreds of thousands of people given the opportunity to go to these things, they would jump on it. I mean, you see, even in Africa, these little villages, these kids are given a laptop, donated by Microsoft. It's very nice. And they're learning PowerPoint, and then they're teaching. They're so happy, they're learning these things. I mean, even in the worldly sense, even outside of submission, I mean, it's understood that it's apathy. Apathy is condemned. To be apathetic, to not care, that is
Right.
condemned, and you're not caring about these things shows you're not that. I mean, to me, it's not an ideal. I mean, that type of mindset is not the mindset of what
Yeah.
a submitter should have.
I mean, what does submission teach us, right? I mean, I wanna get to the like meat and potatoes, like what does the Quran say? What does the messenger say? Because both of us we shared these points, and it seemed like the person wasn't convinced, like didn't think that we were stating Quranic concepts, like they thought that it's more like a preference, right? So I wanna like objectively study, the references from the Quran, from the verses, and correctly what does the messenger say exactly about studying, about education, about career, working hard, about becoming, a rich believer, or striving. I think all of those things. I think it's in, it's would be helpful, if we have those things. Like you and I know, because we have read those verses, that we have talked about it many times, right? And I mean, even if you look at all your Quran studies, the messenger of the covenant has debated with people about this very subject, about rich believer being better than poor believer. He debated with people about, not wanting to go to college, saying that they can do better without going to college. And I mean, all of these things are there, right? But for example, what do you say to someone who says, "Yeah, but I've asked God, God will provide for me." But having said that, they still don't want to go to school. When I say go to school, like I'm talking about like finishing this very basic level of schooling, not even talking about college, you know. So not someone not even wanting that, because in
Right?
America, for example, in
You
popular
even need
culture, you
that
have a lot of
to be
people.
right.
Yeah, in America, for example, in popular culture, like there are a lot of billionaires that dropped out of college. So one can say maybe I don't need a college degree, and they it would be helpful, but there's people that can survive without it, right? But people without going to school, even like not even graduating high school, you can like you don't even understand like how to survive. Like there's basic
Right.
jobs require you to be a high school graduate.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
even if you
even to
want to drive a bus,
and this also reminds me, brother, even to properly understand and use simple things like functions
hmm
in math, because it's
hmm
to even understand the Quran's mathematical miracle. I just thought about this.
hmm hmm
The same individual was, I mean, at one point, didn't didn't completely understand it, and like imagine not making an effort to educate yourself.
hmm
Like I'm talking about the addition and these other
hmm
concepts that are
hmm
very someone with but they I was told that they're it's not completely understood. Like, but
Uh-huh.
imagine not going to school to actually learn these concepts,
Yeah, being in the
these
United
basic
States,
concepts to
a
understand
country
the
like
miracle.
United
Because
States.
I'll just say it now, this
Uh,
person said that they did not understand completely, and it was literally due to lack of education. So imagine
mhm.
not wanting to understand the miracle in this sense, and I mean, being able to teach somebody else, being able to teach, your kids if you have them one day, being able to teach a friend, like, look right there. I mean, that's a great, wonderful example. I mean, like when I've explained it to somebody before, like the 19, the miracles of the contact prayers, that huge long number, and how this relates and the geometrical value. I mean, even myself, I have to read these things, and then okay, and then I'm explaining it to my dad, for example, because I'm trying to, and then whether he takes heed or not, but for us to be able to preach the message and strive in this way, I mean, not, I mean, it's striving, yeah, but I mean, it's really it's a commandment that we have to. I mean, if we're choosing to not regard ourselves or regard others in the sense of understanding the basic concepts and understanding the miracle. And then the one thing that is holding you back is this what we're talking about, lack of proper education, and you're throwing that out. I mean, that's unappreciative.
Mhm.
I mean, the footnote also in 31:13, it says, "How will you feel if you take care of a child, give him the best education, and prepare him for life, only to see him thank someone else?" Thus is idolatry and justice. I mean, that's talking
Mhm.
about idolatry, but I
Mhm.
mean, you know, uh,
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, exactly. So I mean, can someone say that, like, say they decide that they don't want to go to school, they don't want to educate themselves, or do something, I guess, any other steps to, like, logical steps to better your financial situation, but they say, I've asked God for help, and He's gonna answer my prayers. You know, like, does that make any logical sense? Like, what does God say about trusting in Him and imploring Him? Like, can I say that, like, for example, like, I want to become a billionaire, and but I don't need to do anything. Let's say I'm not saying I want to become a billionaire. I don't want to become a billionaire, but let's say, I want to be rich. And I say, yeah, I want to be rich, but um, I don't want to work for it. But I've asked God for it, and He's gonna help me.
yeah, or just
Like, it
provide
doesn't
for,
make sense. I mean, why would
yeah, just
God say,
provide for another guy. It reminded me.
yeah,
I think there's a video. It's a sermon, um, where God's message of the covenant was talking about how God is running everything, but we still need to do our part. He gave the
hmm
example. I don't remember
hmm
which number it was, but he gave the
when the
example.
Quran
It was
says,
actually kind of funny. He said the guy
mhm,
was. He said, "Yeah, like man, I don't. I'm probably heavily paraphrasing, but I'll tell you the part where I'm not." He said,
mhm,
you're looking for employment, you can't find work or whatever, and then like you're not, you're just laying around, not doing anything, and you're saying, God is running out, like no, like you don't
mhm,
come out with money. Oh, okay, no. So it was this was what it was about. It was about the amount of dollars that are written for us, from beginning to end.
mhm,
And then the people,
mhm,
he's like, the messenger was like, yes, yes, um, he was like, yes, they're, what did somebody say? Somebody was trying to argue, playing was like, oh, well, what if I don't work? Like that means, and he was like, yes, they're still written, like even if you don't choose to work, because someone was
mhm,
arguing, playing, okay, if the dollars I'm gonna make in my life are already written, everything's been pre-recorded, Surah 57. Uh,
mhm,
Brother Jocker said, yeah. He said you still need to cut the meat, right? He said you still have to do, and he said, but it's like this person, saying, yeah, I don't need to. Everything's already been written. They don't do anything. God is running everything. And they don't do anything to their situation. That's the point that was made. So,
Yeah.
I mean, in that context, it's not. But yeah, I mean, if there's anybody else that are, I don't want to feel like we're the only two um, talking about.
So
But I
Struggle
just,
said, "Thank you for the study." Okay. It's in brother Jaffer said, "You still need to cut the meat."
he said, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, like the meat isn't gonna cut itself, or the
Mhm.
food isn't gonna jump in your mouth. Like you have to put
Mhm.
forth the work.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. I would have liked to hear Struggle's opinion on this too, but she left.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
Mm.
tomorrow or next step.
Uh, yeah. Okay. Um. Yeah. I mean, it's very obvious that I mean, God encourages us to work hard. God talks about how rich believer is better than a poor believer in the sense that you can strive more, you can work, towards spreading submission. The messenger talks about, distributing Qurans, building mosques, things like that, helping the poor. And then the people who had a problem with it, he asked them, "Do you want to be rich or poor?" And none of them said, "I want to be poor." You know, they said, "I want to be." They said, "Of course, I want to be rich." You know?
Mm,
And so now, I mean, so if a person tells me even like, "No, but I don't want to be rich, I just want to be poor," I don't even believe that person. I
yeah,
think they're just not being honest. Like this is just a lot of nonsense, and like I don't buy that uh, kind of argument either. But I mean, of course, God doesn't want us to be poor. God wants us to have no financial problems. And this is His promise, actually. I mean, God says He will provide for the believers, and He will give them victory in this one and the hereafter. I mean, so, uh, and obviously, God says, you put your trust in God. Like for example, when God talks about the war, He talks about all the power you can muster, all the equipment you can mobilize, and put your trust in God. Right? God could have just said, just put your trust in God. You don't need weapons. I will just send the angels alone that will be helpful, and
right.
God can just send angels, right? But God says, do all of these things, and then put your trust in God on top of that. Because the outcome is not in your hands. The efforts you can make, right? You can make a lot of efforts, but whether your efforts are going to be successful or not, that's completely up to God, right? But making the effort is our responsibility. And I think as submitters, uh, you know this counts as striving. When the messenger says, for example, you do all these things, you do it with the intention that you're going to use it to strive in the cause of God. He says now that becomes a part of your worship to God. Right? If you're doing it with the right intention, even your work, you're going in pursuit of God's provision, given that you're saying you're doing it to be charitable, to strive in His cause, that becomes part of your worship. So someone saying, "No, I don't want to work hard. I just want, to be live just an easy life where I don't have to do any of this stuff." And they think that there's nothing wrong with it as a matter. I mean, this couldn't be farther from the truth. I mean, submission motivates us to go out there and do these things. Um, so I think just hearing something like that is very shocking, almost disturbing to some degree. Being a submitter, like we wouldn't expect people to think like that, especially given the fact that all this time that I've been in submission for many years, I haven't seen anybody say stuff like that ever. You know, and mashallah, all the people I've seen, I mean, people have many flaws and stuff, all kinds of flaws, but no one has said, that they don't need to do any of this stuff and it's pointless. I mean, all the people I've seen have encouraged their kids and have themselves been, working for the most part, most of them, right? and have gone to prestigious schools, or try to, do work hard, and make a good career, for themselves. Uh, a lot of them, especially for their kids, they're encouraged. And I've seen people, for example, who are with the messenger, like they put a lot of effort in their kids, to send them to, be educated and stuff. So for people to come and say things like that, all of a sudden, like, I find it very distasteful, about everything else, on top of everything else.
It really is, it ties back into being unappreciative.
Yeah, really, just comes back
Like the two paths that are laid out for the human, the unappreciative and appreciative. And despite what people, as we said earlier, you can lead a horse to water. It doesn't mean it's going to drink. And even if the horse swears its intentions are good, I mean, it's maybe not. Let me not mess up that example, but the point.
How could you
Yeah,
mess
the
up that
point.
example?
Yeah,
You can't mess it up.
yeah, mashallah. Yeah, the actions are gonna be
Yeah, exactly. Like, someone who's appreciative will understand the value of all these things we discussed. So
right.
someone who's not appreciative, it's like, and I gave that example earlier too, right? It's like when God decides to, bless the children of Israel, with manna and quails, they're like, oh, give us three crops, of our three crops, such as lentils and
Mhm.
onions.
Yeah.
So they wanted to substitute, those things.
That's
And
very
yeah,
true.
and then how God talks about the people of Sheba, how they had gardens flowing on both sides, providing food, and they said they don't care, and they were unappreciative. They said, and they also said, God secured the journeys between for different stations. They said we don't care if the journeys are you know near or anything like that. And then God substituted, their gardens with uh, you know uh, badlands.
Yeah, and thorns and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's obviously, if we don't appreciate God's blessings, then God takes away those blessings. We lose those blessings, and God says, "The more you thank me, the more I give you." And you see the people, the more they thank them, God gives them more. It's God's system. I mean, and like I said, I mean, people can invent their own system that they like, that they think that they want, that they think is the
Mhm.
easier system. But if it's not God's system, I mean, they're going against God. Kind of like how people say they want to worship God alone, follow Quran alone, without following the messenger,
Without the messenger, right?
and the messenger says they're going against God's system, and God is not going to guide them because they're going against His system. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's part of your worshiping God. Part of your striving is to actually go and work, so you can strive, right? And so it's to me, it's just equivalent to someone not wanting to strive. You know? Someone wanting to be sedentary. That's not good, of course, because if you're just going to work
Mhm.
minimum wage jobs, you're just going to be sedentary. You're not going to be able to strive in the place, right?
Hey, yeah.
So that just
Imagine
means
like
you want to
invest.
be sedentary. All right. So, are there any comments or questions from anyone? Thank you, Brother John, for leading the study. Thank you, all of you guys, for participating. And God willing, our next English Quran study would be on Tuesday, starting at 2 p.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
God bless you. Assalamu alaikum.